Now I know some of you folks out there think I have rocks in my head. Well, I'll tell you why. When I was young, things were a little different when it comes to driving. When you turned 14, you could get your driver's, what they called a learner's permit. You went down to the driving place and you took a simple test that showed that you knew what a red light meant, and a green light meant, and a stop sign meant, and that was about it. It was a real simple test. You walked in, took the test, and walked out. You hardly had to study. And then you got a training or learning permit. And what that meant is that you could drive anywhere with an adult during daylight hours as long as a licensed adult driver was with you. But there was a catch in the law too. When you were 14, you could have a motorcycle. Now, when my brother turned 14, he was older than me, about 8 years older than me, so I must have been in about the 3rd grade when this happened. When my brother turned 14, the rule in Florida was you could buy a motorcycle of any size. They had no limit. And so my dad got a really good deal on an Indian motorcycle. It was a big one. It was almost as big as some of the Harleys you see running around, but it didn't have lots of flash on it. It was a basic motorcycle built for performance. And my brother just roared up and down the highway everywhere on that. Well, the road in front of our house was 2-lane and it was paved, but the side roads that went all the way back to what we called the Bayfront, those were dirt roads or gravel. And back then there was no helmet law, so most people that rode motorcycles rode without a helmet. And there wasn't any dress code for motorcycle people. There wasn't any special gear you could go out and buy, protective gear. When we rode around on the motorcycle, often we would just wear a pair of shorts and no shirt, no helmet, and no shoes. We would wear flip-flops. Well, one day my brother said, "Hey, let's go for a drive in the motorcycle." And so I said, oh, okay. And he took me and he set me on top of the tank in front of him where he could have both arms around me as he drove. And we took off down the road. We went around several blocks and finally we went way down past the Bay Front Center, which was a big wooded area. And we started coming home on the final stretch down the gravel road. Well, we got about halfway down that road, and all of a sudden, this really big German Shepherd starts snarling, growling, and running out, and he jumps right in front of us. He leaped across the ditch and landed right in front of the motorcycle. Well, my brother, not having all the experience in the world, and it being a gravel road, what did he do? He slammed on the front brake. We should put on both brakes simultaneously or your back brake first, but he slammed on the front brake. And I'm telling you, that motorcycle, that front wheel stopped, started skidding, and the motorcycle went like this, and it flipped end over end, and we hit the dog. Smack-o! Right into the dog, hit the front brake at the same time, and the motorcycle just went flip like that. And we were wearing just shorts, no helmet, no shirts, sneakers, and we landed on the gravel road. I landed on the gravel road on my back, and my brother landed pretty much on his back, and we kept skidding down the road because we were doing 35 or 40 miles an hour, and we skidded down the road on our backs. Oh boy, I can't say it hurt. I didn't feel anything. Next thing I knew, I was laying in the ditch, and my brother was standing over me, and he was just bleeding all over, and people were running out of houses. There was no 911 back then, so nobody called the fire department. Nobody called the police. One lady called my mom and dad. Pretty soon my mom and dad show up, and I'm still laying in the ditch. And I skidded across that gravel road on my back, and it scraped every bit of skin off of my back. And in the process, before I skidded, I fell and landed on my head, and I got a little dimple in my skull right there. You can still feel it. And I had a little hole in my head up here where a rock hit my head, but it didn't penetrate the skull. I didn't even have a concussion. took us a long time to get the skin back on our back, and we didn't do any more motorcycling down that road. The dog, well, sorry to say, the dog died. And I don't think he died instantly, but the dog died from what we heard. But that's why some people think I have rocks in my head. Now my brother, his skin was all off of his back too, and he hit his head pretty hard too, only he really did have a really hard lick from a rock right in his head, right about in this area, and it made a little dent there that is still there today. You can see the scar on his head, even though he just turned like 80 years old or 81. You can still see that little scar on his head. But that's why some people say I have rocks in my head. And that's the way it was back then when you wanted to learn how to drive, especially when you wanted to learn how to drive motorcycles. You could have anything. It was amazing. It wasn't long after that that they changed the rule, and I'll tell you that another day.